Hello all, welcome back to my channel TechSense. In my previous video, we discussed about Azure Network Services. For example, virtual network, load balancer, virtual private network, application gateways. In this session, we will discuss about Azure Storage Services. What are the services that Azure provides in terms of storage? So let's start. Today we will discuss what is disk, containers, what is files, queues, Cosmos DBs, and Sql Database. So what is disk basically? Disk storage provides disk for virtual machines, applications, and other services to access and use as they need, similar to how they would in on-premise scenarios. So it's just like the disk that we have for our machines, maybe laptop, desktop, any server. We have disk for storage. So the same way disk performs in Azure as well. Disk storage allows data to be persistently stored and accessed from an attached VHD. The disk can be managed or unmanaged by Azure and therefore managed and configured by the user. So it's totally managed by the user. They can attach or detach it so that they can migrate the whole thing for the new server. Typical scenarios for using disk storage are if you want to lift and shift applications that read and write data to persistent disk, or if you're storing data that is not required to be accessed from outside the virtual machine to which disk is attached. Disks come in many different sizes and performance levels, from solid state drives to traditionals. Like we have SSD. Okay, so these are different types and different sizes are available in Azure. If you want a minimum size, then you can opt for it. If you want higher storage space, then also you have the option. Also, we have different types like SSD and HDD. So they are different in types of models, different in types of storage spaces. Okay, so now let's see in the portal where they exist basically and how we can use them. Okay, since disk can be attached with machines only, I mean it's attached to a virtual machine or a server, laptop, desktop. So while creating virtual machine, that's the option to attach the disk basically. Click on add. I mention all of the details when I click on next disk. So that's the place. So you have the option to choose premium disk, HDD, SSD, which kind of OS disk you want, and encryption type if you want any encryption. So or you want to create and attach a new disk or attach an existing disk. So this is the place where you can configure the disk according to you. Now let's understand what are containers. Azure Blob Storage is Microsoft object storage solution for the cloud. Blob storage is optimized for storing massive amount of unstructured data such as text or binary data. As we know, data can be in different format, like structured data that we have in Sql databases, or maybe unstructured data like XML or any raw data that do not have any specified structure or semi-structured. So some of the schemas are structured, but some of the things are not structured. So for unstructured data, we use containers. Blob storage is either for serving images or document directly to a browser. So that's one of the use. Storing files for distributed access. You can store the files and the people can access it. You can put the videos and audios also, or storing data for backup and restore in such a way like for disaster recovery and archiving backups like that. Storing data for analysis by an on-premise or Azure hosted service. Let's say you have on-premise data and it's connected to Azure. So analytics data or any telemetry logs or whatever, you can also store that in blobs. Let's see in portal where they exist and how we can use them. Let's go. Okay, so to use the containers, first of all, we need to create the storage account. Storage account name should be unique globally. Okay, click on add. Okay, here are the details that I need to mention. So I mention all of the details to create the storage account. TechSense is available globally. So it allows me to create with this name. Networking, data protection, advanced, tags, next review, create. Click on create. It takes some time to create the storage account. Deployment is in progress. Okay, so the deployment is complete. Click on go to resource. As you can see, within the storage account, we have multiple things: containers, file shares, tables, queues. So click on containers because as of now, we're discussing about containers. In storage account, we can create multiple containers. So mention the name and click on create. It's creating. Okay. So containers already created successfully. As you can see, the containers I created is shown here. Also, we can create another container like that. So that's the container. We can have multiple containers within the storage account. Once you click on this container, you can upload multiple files. It may be an audio file, it may be in video file, it may be a database backup, it may be a log file. So you can use it for multiple purpose. Click on upload. It asks you to give the address of the file, and here you can upload any file which you want in your container. I selected the file and click on upload. Upload complete. So that is how we can have multiple containers in a storage account, and we can have multiple files in a container. So that's how we use it. Okay, so now let's discuss what are files. Azure files enable you to set up highly available network file shares that can be accessed by using standard server message block protocol. That means that multiple VMs can share the same files with both read and write access. You can also read the files using the REST interface or the storage client libraries. It can be accessed anywhere. Okay, so basically if we want that multiple applications share some data with each other, or maybe read the configuration file, it happens, right? Whenever we integrate the system, so we need to read the config file or anything. So in that case, files come into the picture. So it is used to store configuration file, resource logs also. Sometimes it's important to read resources logs by another application. So for that purpose, also to store matrices. Let's see where are the files in portal. File shares also exist in storage account, like we have containers, file shares. Click on file share. Give any name and create. So the file is created. Now you can upload any data here. So that's how we can use file. Okay, what are queues? The Azure queue service is used to store and retrieve messages. Queue messages can be up to 64 KB in size, and a queue can contain millions of messages. Queues are generally used to store lists of messages to be processed asynchronously. Okay, so like we have containers and files, the file size can be up to 1 GB. But here the queue can be up to 64 KB only, because the queues we are not using to store any file or any data. We are using it to store messages, a simple short message. For an example, a user uses my application to submit the order, and like the same way we have 10 customers who are using my orders. So to update the status, we can use queue messages, so that not a single transaction will be missed, not a single status update will be missed. In that case, we can store the messages, or we can just store the events in the queues and process accordingly in first come first serve basis. So that's when queues come into the picture. Let's see in the portal. So queues also exist here in the storage accounts only. Click on queues, queue. Mention the queue name. Let's say the queue name is order processing detail. Click on OK. In storage account, we can have multiple queues, and a queue can have million of messages. So that's my queue. I'll open this queue, and as you can see, I can add the messages. These messages we can add manually, or we can use the APIs of Azure to create the queues by code automatically. So we can use the APIs exposed by the Azure to create the messages automatically, so that when order processing happens, they will read the queue one by one on first come basis and update the status basically. So that's the whole use. Let's say this is my order. As you can see, I'm not able to upload any file because it should be in within 64 KB only. So click OK. These are the messages. It has its own unique ID. That's the message text, insertion time, expiration date. So that's what it is. This is queues. Okay, so as of now, we discuss about Azure Storage Services, files, queues, containers, and disk. Now Let's discuss about storage services only, but in terms of database services. So we have two database services mainly used: Azure Cosmos DBs and Sql Database. Sql Database, you may be aware about it because it's very commonly used service. So let's discuss about Azure Cosmos DB. Azure Cosmos DB is global distributed database service that enables you to elastically and independently scale throughput and storage across any number of Azure's geographic regions. It supports schema-less data and lets you build highly responsible and always-on application to support constantly changing data. Yes, that's the main purpose, because if we talk about SQL database service, we have the predefined schema structure. We have pre-built defined relationship between the tables. It's not that flexible to change them. Let's say the customer can have n orders, but a order cannot have n customers like that. So it's predefined. The schema and the structure of the database, it's predefined basically. But in Cosmos DB, it's very highly flexible. So, and it is a schema-less data. So that is why only it is flexible. So you can use Cosmos DB to store data that is updated and maintained by user around the world. Okay, and the database kind of, when the schemas are updating on daily basis, so you cannot use SQL for that. You need to use Cosmos DB for the same purpose. It makes it easy to build scalable, highly responsive application at global scale. What are the benefits of using Cosmos DBs? The first benefit is multiple APIs. It has multiple APIs. As you can see in the diagram, Grammarly, Document DB, Table Storage, MongoDB. So it has multiple APIs. So once you create the Cosmos DB, you can define which API you want to use so that you can use their functionality, but the data will be in a single format. So the data will be in single format, but at the back end you can use their own functionalities. If you don't have experience in SQL database, you can use API MongoDB and start using it. Low migration cost, because it has its own API, it has its multiple API, so the migration cost is low. Why? Okay, let's see in the portal how does it work. Search for Cosmos DB, click here, click on add. As you can see here, there are the multiple APIs. The preference by the Azure is core SQL only, but you can use Cassandra, Azure table, graph, these kind of structure you can use. So I use core SQL, working, backup policy, encryption tags, review and create. So that's how we create Azure Cosmos DB. We are not going into detail for each API because it's fundamental, as I already told you guys. So it's a fundamental, so the basics we need to be aware of. Azure SQL Database is a relational database as a service. Database as a service based on the latest stable version of SQL Server engine. SQL database is highly performance, reliable, fully managed and secure database that you can use to build data-driven applications and website into the programming language of your choice without needing to manage infrastructure. Okay, so we can create the server, but we need not to manage it. We need not to log in it and update the security patch and anything like that. You just use their SQL database service, and in your application you can just connect it. Push your data, pull the data, but you need not to manage the whole database server. Let's see in the portal how we can create it. SQL databases. Click on add. Mention the database name, select the server, review and create. After mentioning all of the details, the database name, okay, everything, click on review and create. Click on create. Deployment is in progress. As you can see, the deployment is complete. Go to resource. So my SQL database is done. We can connect with this. Here in the left pane, there's the query editor. Just put your password, continue, and then start writing queries. So this is all about today's video. We discussed about Azure Storage Services. What are the services Azure provides in terms of storage? For any query, please write down in comment section. You can also email us at mytechsense@gmail.com or visit to our website techsenseconsulting.com. If you like the video, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. Thank you for watching. Thank you.